In 1997, Julia Butterfly Hill climbed to the top of a 1,000-year-old redwood tree that was 55 meters tall, 180 feet. She climbed that treacherous height to tree sit for 1 week to protest the clear-cutting of an ancient redwood forest. It ended up being 738 days before she touched ground again. She remained in that tree despite terrifying storms and constant harassment from helicopters, loggers, and security guards sent by the Pacific Lumber Company. In Papua, Indonesia, there was a treetop community that existed in total isolation until missionaries intruded in the 1970s. While they reportedly don't practice cannibalism anymore, they are notorious for being one of the last active cannibalistic tribes. Unfortunately, the Korowa are lesser known for continuing the wondrous architectural traditions of their ancestors. They build their unique homes in the shelter of the jungle's thick canopy. For 4 years, Njuguna Ganjia of Kenya lived his days in the shelter of a tree trunk because he had nowhere else to go. He said, "Life drove me here." Without identification, he was not able to receive a living stipend from the government. When asked his name or where he was from, he often gave conflicting statements. It seems that he couldn't remember the details of his life anymore. After all, he was 95 years old. In the heart of the Costa Rican rainforest lies 600 pristine acres with 40 solar-powered tree houses. Think of Bella Vista as Shangri-La suspended in the trees. It began with Matt Hogan and Erica Andrews saving that plot of land from being harvested for its timber. From there, an eco-conscious community was born for the young at heart. Hogan saw, "You're completely immersed in nature, you go to bed listening to the bugs and the frogs, and you wake up with bird song." By 2050, 66% of the world's population is predicted to reside in cities. For some, city life just isn't a fulfilling way to live. Nick Weston wrote, "I took stock of my London lifestyle and decided a change was in order." He was fed up working at a job he despised and paying sky-high prices for food and rent. He had the wild dream of being self-reliant and living more in tandem with nature. So he began work on a project that was more closely aligned with his values. For 6 consecutive years, there's been a small treehouse village in the Hambuk forest near the German-Belgian border. The forest is 12,000 years old, and it's being eradicated because of coal mining. The forest was bought by RWE, a powerful energy company, in the late 1970s. Since then, 90% of the Hambuk forest has been cut down. It used to be the size of Manhattan. In the 1930s, Jim Allen, a lumberjack by trade, found himself alone in the redwood forest of California during a turbulent storm. He managed to take refuge by hiding in the burned-out trunk of a giant redwood. He was overwhelmed with gratitude for the tree's protection. He figured that no house could be as good as the genuine thing. So he purchased a fallen tree from the local lumber company and set out to carve out his home from the source. Mick Dodge has been living off the grid for almost 30 years in the Hoh rainforest of the Pacific Northwest. Dodge lives inside a variety of mossy tree stumps as he wanders around. He says, "There's not a better bedroom in the world." And he never dreams of a normal life. He wakes up every morning and forages for his breakfast. He's also a scavenger. So he'll eat roadkill or an elk killed by a mountain lion, for example. A lot of his free time is spent reading. If he likes the book, he'll plant a tree and share the book. If he doesn't believe in its value, he'll plant a tree anyway. Shawnee Chassair is a purple-haired grandma with claustrophobia who adores the feeling of being mid-air. Since 1992, she had been happily living in a treehouse in her own backyard. Her sanctuary in the sky was on a half-acre of wooded land. There was a man-made pond and even a waterfall. Sadly, Miami-Dade County demanded that she demolish her home. They claimed that it was an unsafe structure, despite having survived Hurricane Andrew. South Florida is prone to hurricanes, and the building codes are rigid. Ricardo Roig of Miami-Dade's Code Enforcement Division said, "This has got to be my first time ever of somebody living in a treehouse." After loggers swept over the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest in the late 1800s, many pioneers were just coming across on wagon trains to settle down with their families. To their surprise, these early settlers discovered a mauled landscape dotted with enormous, towering tree stumps that the lumber companies had left behind. Some of these sturdy stumps were 3 meters, 10 feet, tall. These old logging sites that had cleared the forest seemed perfect for farmland. So some of the thriftiest pioneers had the wise idea to homestead these areas. They settled in what became known as stump home,